Lee Reeves, everybody.
Who in this room ever attended kindergarten? Hands show. Yeah, almost everybody. Who ever put a kid in kindergarten? Okay, I know a few hands didn't go up, but everybody in this room has been 5, I'm sure. So let's go back to those days. Remember the construction paper, the color raspberries and green and gold, and the little scissors that could barely cut them with the round tips, and the tub of paste that turned to cement the minute you opened it? Well, for most people, those days are happy memories, fond memories. Either that or they just, when I ask them, they can't remember a thing about kindergarten. Well, in my case, neither of those are true. I hated kindergarten, and I remember it well. You see, I hated it so badly that I developed a serious case of insomnia. So bad that my mother called the doctor, and that time what they did was order barbiturates. So they worked, but I couldn't get up in the morning to go to kindergarten, and that was fine with me. So then she decided to put me in the afternoon program, which didn't solve my problem, because the reason I hated kindergarten was I had the meanest teacher I would ever have in all of my school years, which seems so weird for a kindergarten teacher, right? She had these beady eyes, and she'd look at you like she knew there was nothing good behind your little kindergarten face. And she was really white, and she painted pink little, the rouge thing, kind of clownish, but there was nothing funny about her. And she was the first bully that I ever met. She really didn't like kids, and there was one kid in the class she really didn't like. He was, he couldn't sit still, and he had a little bit of a speech impediment, and he annoyed her, and he was often put off in the corner, and as another kid, you feel this. You feel this discomfort when you know the teacher clearly does not like this kid. So much so that when we had art projects, she'd let us walk around the room and comment on each other's projects. And I don't know who started it, but everybody would go to his and actually make fun of him and, point to them, and it was awful. And she didn't do anything about it. Now, I'd like to say I was this maverick of a child that stood up to Miss, we'll call her Crabapple, and told her exactly what I thought. But I slunk around past that boy, and I hope I didn't say the worst things. And that stays with you. You remember when people make you feel good and when they make you feel bad. And you really remember forever those times you make someone else feel bad. So that was already at kindergarten age, I was feeling that. So come time to put my own child, 30 years later, into kindergarten, I'm pretty apprehensive. But she is not. She cannot wait to go to kindergarten. She had a lot of medical problems and had been in the hospital many times, and all of her friends she would lose because she was often in a long time, and they would come and go. And her most important thing to her was making friends. And in kindergarten, she would be able to make friends that didn't go away and healthy friends. So she was very much looking forward to it. First couple days are fine, and then she comes home and says how lonely she is at school, because when she's on the playground, nobody wants to play with her. And she said, I just walk around and sing hum-dee-dee-dum. But she really wanted a friend. And I know that one of the reasons that she was having a hard time fitting in with the kids, because all the time in the hospitals, she'd had a lot of IVs. And survival with an IV means learning to keep your body very still and protect yourself when you move. And she protected herself. And she did not want to play jump rope or tag or any of that kind of stuff. So I went up to the teacher and thought I'd have a nice conversation about how we might help Lita acclimate and maybe make at least one friend. Well, this teacher was quite a bit different than mine. Her first name was Angie, and the kids called her by her first name. You might think that was a good sign, but it really wasn't. So when I talked to Angie about maybe we could work together, Alita's having a hard time adapting, and she's been in the hospital a lot, and she really wants to make a friend. And I'm kind of worried because the whole time I'm talking, Angie's like this. And when I finish, she says, "Mrs. Reeves, it's a tough world out there. Your daughter does not need coddling. What she needs is some street smarts." And I looked at her like, okay, this is a joke. And when I realized it wasn't, I grabbed her by the lapel and said, "Listen, bitch. This is my kid, and she suffered more than you ever have, and she's tougher than you'll ever be." Well, no, I said that in here. Instead, I just thought to myself, we're getting out of here. I don't want my kid spending her whole day with this woman. Fortunately, we were moving, and we had to go to another kindergarten. But this time, the curse was over. Miss Schuler, she had sparkly blue eyes and a voice that was just so soft and lovely that you could curl up inside it. And when she talked to the kids, she got down like this, eyeball to eyeball, and she sparkled and was full of enthusiasm. And she loved my child. I got great, wonderful reports. "It's a pleasure to have your daughter in school. She's so bright. She's reading at a 3rd grade level, and she's enthusiastic, and she's kind." And I'm feeling really, really good. You know how parents have these egos, and it felt great. And so come the end of the year, I get a call. She says she'd like me to come up to school and have a private conference. And I'm feeling very good about what I'm going to hear, because she starts right out as I expect. "It's a pleasure having your child in class, and she's so bright and loves to, and it gets along with the other kids. However, the reason I've called you here is I want to keep her back a year. I think she should do kindergarten again." Well, the first thought that came to my mind is my brother, Billy. He was held back in 1st grade. And the psychologist at the time told my mother the best thing to do would be not to tell him in advance, because that would be upsetting. So he tells the story of sitting around thinking he's in 2nd grade, looking for a familiar face and not seeing one, and saying to himself, "I flunked, I'm a loser." And that stayed with him. That's a scar that's still with him. So that's all I could think about. And I told Miss Schuler, and she said, "Don't worry, it's not going to be that way. It won't be that way." And I said, "But you said she was one of your brightest kids. I don't get why you want to keep her back." And she said, "Well, that's exactly why I want to keep her back," which sounded very counterintuitive. She said, "Sometimes the brighter kids, if they're not physically at the level they should be, and if they're too sensitive and maybe emotionally not ready for school," she said, "they're going to have a hard time. Trust me, if she stays in kindergarten another year, she's going to have a better entire school experience." Well, I went home. I told her I'd think about it, talked to my husband, and I'm still from that missing a grade. It's flunked. Maybe it isn't as bad now, but it was really a stigma. On the other hand, I knew this woman really cared about my daughter. And I knew that she probably knew best, so I called her and said, "Okay, Lita can stay. I'll let her do a 2nd year in kindergarten." And 3 days later, my daughter comes running, just barreling through the door. "Guess what? I get to stay in kindergarten another year." So it actually turned out to be one of the best decisions I made, because she had 15 years to live at that time, and her school was difficult as it was. She was in the hospital a lot. She was small for her age, even when she was the oldest in the class. And because of Miss Schuler, I think she was way more able to deal with the difficulties that came her way. And you know, sometimes parents don't know best. And sometimes what seems counterintuitive is absolutely the best thing. Thank you.